Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So what you're seeing on screen here is 27 eliminations with 6,366 damage. The goal of this video is going to be just as long as a round. I may pause it, I may freeze frame. I want to teach you guys how to play Wattson aggressively, and I'm going to do it through control mode. This is pretty much, I look at control mode as the fastest track way to improve to how to play aggressively. So I'm going to title this how to play Wattson aggressively, but if you want to learn how to play aggressively in general, this video is going to be for you. So I just couldn't decide whether or not how to play Wattson aggressively or just how to play aggressively in general is going to be more interesting. So I'm just going to run with Wattson just because I feel like it's a little more difficult to play her aggressively. I'm going to freeze frames, talk occasionally on tips, but the biggest thing is making sure whenever you have the upper hand that you take shots and you put pressure. That's one thing that I'm very confident that I do really well as Wattson. You'll notice I immediately duck for cover, go for positioning, but I always have an out. That's the biggest thing. So if I freeze here, you notice where my back was here. I'm going to go back in slow motion here. I always have the ability to go towards the wall to the left there if things get really bad. And because control mode, you kind of eliminate the healing process. You can just strictly think about the aggression process as a whole. And that's why I think control mode is really great to learn to teach. So you saw the intro first damage there, pretty solid at the start there, and I pretty much go to play the objective. You notice that I'll pretty much hang at the objectives to play as much as possible. You see here, again, I only wide swing when I realize the opponent isn't looking at me, and I'm going for the damage. I know that this opponent right here hasn't taken a look at me yet, right? Which is good, which is why I'm more than happy to wide swing this out. So when I use the word wide swing, I mean I'm running out in the open without cover whatsoever. I don't have cover yet, but I could. So if I have the cover here, you'll notice if I miss a shot, I instantly see how I'm isolating into a 1v1 best I can, but I'm able to retreat and reposition. So it does, you run into RNG in situations like that where you have to back out and reposition, but I also fence quickly there to buy myself some time so my teammates can go in. I decided to take an alternate angle here, and this is what you should always do. You should always try to take different angles whenever you're trying to push an opponent. So I get the elimination there. I back immediately. Once you know that you get cracked first, you back immediately out from the encounter and you bait the opponent to push you, which is exactly what happened here with both these fences. I pretty much had deja vu because I faced the same fuse twice. So this video is going to be, I really feel like it's going to have a lot more tips because you're going to notice how do you peek and how do you run in and out of an engagement where you're like, well, how did I lose that? Or when do I retreat? Well, here's the answer. So I wide swing out. I'm probably going to get eliminated here. This is where I call this a mistake, right? So we go backtrack and we take a look at this. The wide swing out, I went out without any information. Granted, I have my teammates here, which can be beneficial, but I do see there is an arc here, right? So going out is definitely the aggressive play, and I'm low HP. This isn't a smart decision. I know I could have waited more patiently and used the door here and waited for the horizon to get intro damage. As I went in, this is very greedy, which is why I get slammed here. And really, yeah, okay, I got the elimination with the team, but then it does cost me. Speaking of mistakes, one that is not a mistake is getting yourself some glitch energy. This is a fast advert to remember to use code DAZ at checkout with glitch to support the channel. I got quite the collection here. Get a starter kit today and try out lots of new flavors. I got lots of them. I really like the Azure flavor and I've been absolutely loving it. So let's get right back in the action of the video and let's break down my mistakes that I make in game, right? That's what I call a bad push or a bad play. Sometimes a wide swing out can be really good if your whole team just kind of says full send it, but it is going to result, you have to understand it's going to result in you getting eliminated. So I'm going to point out my flaws here as well, because you don't always just make the right decision. And the reason why I highly recommend doing control is that you can make a lot of mistakes when you play aggressively. And that by playing aggressively like this, you're going to get your damage up. So the only way to get more damage is by peeking aggressively, holding aggressively, and anchoring aggressively. So peeking and wide swinging out, because I know I have the jump on him, that's the reason why I take that damage. And once you have the upper hand and you realize an opponent isn't doing damage, you know that you have the upper hand to be able to go for an elimination. That's just reading your opponent at that point. And because I have that information, I'm able to make a strong play. So you can honestly use your HP as an engagement to gauge whether or not you know that you can clutch out. And you'll see that with those both encounters. And I know most people, the problem that I have when explaining this is that it feels very contradictory, right? But it's all made through sheer quick decision making within seconds to be able to tell if the opponent is going to land damage or not and play those odds in your favor. So if I go back, let's go back 5 seconds and review those two open fights here. So if I eliminate this opponent who I could tell really was kind of locked down and not really focused. They're focused on too many things. Because they're focused on too many things, I decided to wide swing it out, and it was a good call because I took absolutely no damage. Now, this other opponent, if I want to play aggressively to do something, and sure, when I did, technically I've already done 60 damage, they've done nothing to me. If they've done nothing to me, this screams for me to be able to push, because I don't think that this opponent's going to land their shot successfully, get the jump on him, and then boom. I am out in the open. If I get cracked here, I would 100% retreat, and I pause there for a moment. But I don't. So because I don't, I go in and wide swing again and just pretty much ego this, and that person doesn't even shoot me or anything because he's got a Kraber out. Now, it could have gotten bad. I could have gotten hit by the Kraber, but I reset here to be able to heal up. And I'm looking at my timer, and it's why I fence. Now, the unfortunate part is that doesn't stop opponents from pushing. You'll see here that this fuse did not care about my fences and did kind of wide swing out a bit more, but that does give me the upper hand, right? Because I know that this opponent, no matter what's going to push. So let's take a look at that real quick. So we see here, they fight, then boom. And I have the armor swap here, and I'm ready to go for another fight. I see the Kraber on the ground. I don't grab it. I'm really vibing with the R99 as well as the Wingman if that happens. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to keep my hitbox small. I could do it a bit more successfully, but you see where I'm kind of out in the open, but half of my body I know isn't exactly exposed. See where I'm ducking, weaving back and forth, and I also have the tree there. I know in that moment I'm in a clean 1v1 against my opponent. My opponent here is just looking at me, and they disengage because they got hit. And because I know I have the advantage, I can go full ego at that point. If they did more damage to me, I would retreat and reposition. So I know it feels contradictory to say, well, you need to play position, you need to wide swing out. You kind of have to make very smart decisions whether or not you have the upper hand or not. So I use the Horizon Q, I push forward. This is a very ballsy decision at the same time, but instantly I move myself into cover so my hitbox is really small. Even though my opponent is on the right, I finish up because I know this person. Granted, this person right here is actually the bigger threat on the right. I'm able to at least focus the person down on the left and eliminate them quickly. But what I do is I use this as cover. Now the bigger threat for this person is the person here because I'm not available to be shot at, right? So I'm able to take shots and then be able to reset, and I put my gen down to heal up a bit faster to be able to get back into the encounter and in the fight. But I'm using stuff and geometry and things in the area that would otherwise seem like it isn't good cover, right? Because that opponent right there wasn't even paying attention to me. They were kind of were, but I know that they're not landing their shots. You can assess, can I continue to keep pushing forward and keep putting pressure to stave off an enemy? You'll know when you get cracked, and we'll see if this happens here in a moment. If I need to back up, the crack is massive there. You see where I'm using the tree? There's a lot of positioning where it just kind of comes out of nowhere. It's like, well, it seems like you're wide swinging out, making a very uninformed decision. Well, the thought process here quickly, when we review this, is that yes, they kind of caught me out, but they're missing, and they're shooting the person behind me. And I don't see any damage taken from me yet, but there's a crack. Instantly, you see where I go down and I start using the tree as cover. They can't even shoot me from that angle at that point. And if I can back up immediately and play this little ridge where I'm at right here for cover, and I get a swap, and now I'm able to continue to fight within this. So this person does have a jump, but I'm also landing way more damage than them. So I take another off angle here just to finish up the fight, and well, the got eliminated from somebody from a distance, and there we go, 86 in. I know that the health discrepancy here, even as I move in and heal, is buying me time, and you have to be able to gauge that. Do this in control, but when you're in the main game, realize that you can slide in and then heal as you're going to the next fight, and there's that cleanup. There's just too many of us to overwhelm the opponent here. We're making some really strong decision making, which is really, really helping. So this is what I call how to play Wattson aggressively. I'm finding angles, I'm moving up, I'm putting gen, I'm putting fences, and I'm getting the jump on the opponent. If I'm not getting the jump on the opponent, I run and I retreat to find an angle. So I got cracked. Instantly here, my thought process, I need to move to a different spot and reposition. I can no longer stand out in the open, and I need to find my way to reset. So here's my reset. Boom, pop my med kit. I got my fences up, and I'm able to get right back into the fight because now I have anchored a position. If I got wide swung here by somebody else, that's just unfortunate. I already cleared my back. I looked forward, and I'm able to continue pushing onwards and go into the fray and into the fight. This is it's complicated. Maybe I'm just overthinking it, and you guys can comment down below. But realistically, if we simplify this process, did you get cracked? If the answer is no, you can try to continue to put pressure. And if you did get cracked, you need to retreat and refine another angle to push. Another little tip there, did your opponent get the jump on you? And if they did, you need to reposition and try to get out. If they didn't, then you can dish out damage to get the upper hand on them. What you're seeing constantly here, if we go back from each of these, this fuse here is completely caught off guard. I shot, but he completely ignored my shots, but I have the upper hand. I should win this fight 10 out of 10 times. If I don't, that needs to be improved by aim. So if you're watching that and you don't win that fight, that's because of aim. I technically got the jump here on the Newcastle. I out-gear him, so therefore I should win that fight as well. I do have an angle on this opponent. It's been a while since I reviewed this footage. And again, this isn't the best footage. Believe it or not, this was actually a warm-up round. This was my warm-up round before I actually got in for the day. This wasn't us grinding control all day. And so I get the jump on the opponent, throw them off. Marianas has got a 6-shot, and I land a bit of damage, and I can keep putting pressure. This pressure is created, and this is a kind of an ego 1v1. I didn't know he was going to be there, but because I have teammates nearby, I know that I can climb up and move around successfully, and I continue to anchor and hold aggressively as Wattson here. The gen gives me the faster reset, and I know that I can pretty much chase and go after whoever's here. Now, another interesting thing that I always say is that never play low ground. But the interesting part here is that if you are putting more pressure and they are giving you the opportunity, you can play low ground only if you are dealing more damage, putting more pressure. And I can climb up because I climbed up here for several reasons. And where there's a rule can be broken because there's a different variable. This variable here, when we look at it, I did 55 damage. I have purple. I actually technically win this fight. There is no way, shape, or form that I lose this fight. So I move up on it, and I decide to fight and commit. Because also, whenever I shoot here, you're going to notice I see them reloading. Ready? Reload. I win this because they're reloading. They have downtime. I'm able to climb up during the reload, and then boom, they panic, and they run away. Now, I've been cracked, so I need to reset. So I use my fences to reset and wait for them to either make a mistake or push me. So I decide to wait, and I wonder if I get eliminated here. No, I don't, luckily. I thought a Bloodhound, actually. There they are. They push down. The fences buy yourself some time. Not a lot of time, but it buys yourself some time to reset. So there's another opponent here. Notice how I use cover. So a lot of mistakes individuals do when they play aggressively is they play a little too aggressively. It's like you have to know when to find cover. And instantly, I know there was somebody there. If I stood out in the open right here with the fuse, this person would have actually had a pretty decent jump on me, right? But not anymore because I'm using this as cover. And because of that, even though they have a bit of a jump, I do get eliminated, I think. But that's because the other team came back and then I got shot in the back. But that was my best possible scenario for me to actually win that encounter because I played that angle there. And you shouldn't be, if you play that well, like you saw there is absolutely no reason to ever be upset about how you played that fight. So I encourage you to make mistakes, do stuff like that, because you'll learn a lot more from each of your fights and engagements. Even when you're playing the BR, it'll feel like you're going into a fog. And I was talking with Sarah about this last night, where you're going into a fog and it feels like you don't know what the next step is. It's because you're playing aggressively in areas that you don't necessarily feel comfortable with. It's a lot more comfortable to anchor and then wait for the long distance crack rather than it's to go up close and personal, where the decision-making time is cut almost by a whole massive percentage. You go from being able to have 5 seconds to potentially only having 1 second to make a decision. So this is where it's so tricky, because right now I see them running, and this is a fast decision making you have to make. If I see them running, it means that they're not targeting me, and I technically have the jump right here, right? Which is why I don't mind holding this. They're pulling out their weapon. I got the jump on them. I can back up or I continue to push, but they're going to reposition, and I can wide swing on this because I know I have the jump and the health advantage. So I swap here, I kind of whiff a little bit, and I need to either retreat or do a little bit more damage. But because I'm using this, you see where cover, it just feels like it doesn't exist, but it does, right? I'm instantly using the care package as my cover to isolate a 1v1. The only person who can hit me is this Octane, the only person in this encounter. But it's fast seconds that really matter in terms of being able to dish out more damage and then play aggressively. Otherwise, that wouldn't have existed. There I go back again. The fuse right there instantly peaked me, but because I knew that I have no more bullets on my mag, I didn't switch to the wingman in that moment because I know it takes a second for me to switch to the wingman. If we see the slow motion, my mag disappears. I say, oh shoot, reload. The bullets start flying, but they prioritize the Bloodhound because the Bloodhound is out in the open there, right? And therefore, I take no damage. This can be really bad for your teammates. And by the way, Sarah or Mari, if you're watching in this is pretty much why when we're in encounters, why I tend to take less damage, because I usually bait, I do damage and peek around the corner, and usually if you're the next person lined up, you're going to take more damage. This is pretty bad for your teammates, but your teammates also have to play the angles just as much as you. But your teammates also, oh, this is so bad because I switched over to the armor there. I should be dead. I don't know how I live here. I'm pretty sure I die any second now, but the armor swap was actually broken on the ground, and I think I get shot in the back here. And I try to play that angle, and sometimes you're just in scenarios. Like if I back up and I say, what went wrong here, right? Let's go back. This was smart. I push in. I get the jump on the opponent here, right? Perfect. I should not have done this. This was bad. I should have played the angle closer to the right. Because I wide swung out too hard, and granted I saw the purple there, I got a little bit greedy. My greed is what cost me, because now I'm literally just in an open field here, just being shot by everybody. But if I played the angle on the right, you see where that Bloodhound is? Right there? Well, they unfortunately got shot in the back, but it would have been a smarter angle to minimize my damage lost. And then I could have turned, backed up, and repositioned. And sometimes what will happen due to sheer RNG, like we said, you just may not be able to out damage or out fight, and that's okay. You made a play, you made a decision. If another team and too many people roll up, that's what we're simulating here in control mode of how to play Wattson aggressively, how to play aggressively in Apex Legends, how to see this sheer second decisions. What's stopping you from going up to the next rank is shaving down time from decision making. Decision making has to be done quickly, and if it's not done quickly, well, then you're going to take damage or you're going to make a mistake. So while I jump down here, I'm on the low ground. I could hold there for a second, but even that 1 second, you see bullets already at me. If I held there for even one more second, I lose, or I take too much damage, or they push. Those seconds are everything to improving to master Wattson, to get better at Apex, to improve. And it just comes with putting defined rules in your head. When do I retreat? If I have low ground, I have no damage, I'm booking it with no hesitation, whether regardless of how many teammates I have nearby. You see how instantly I'm playing cover here? If I got shot at by those two individuals, I can play that angle right there and be just fine. I wide swing out a bit more just because they're not looking at me. But if I get shot, I can reposition, go to the back, and potentially drop my ultimate ability to reset for a little bit more. I instantly realize that you can make mistakes. I do too. Ready? This is a mistake right here. And it's okay. We acknowledge the mistakes. We know that nobody is perfect, but as long as you're able to do it fundamentally, my thought process here is that their backs are turned, they're not going to shoot at me, which is not very smart. I really should have held the rock here, but I get caught out because technically the fuse then here had the jump on me, right? And I back up immediately because I'm like, oh gosh, that's bad. But I'm already cracked, and I put this as a reset, and I try to fight as much as possible here, but I whiff a bit of my mag, and I should get eliminated. Yep, and I do. That wide swing out is what costed me there. If I didn't wide swing out, and I maybe get hit a little bit, put the gen and fight the Bloodhound and get the jump on the Bloodhound instead, I win instead. But that's where my mistake was. It's very quick, the mistakes. And when you watch your VODs, a lot of people will comment and say, and I know it comments, well, my aim is perfect and my positioning is good. Why am I losing? It's because your positioning is initially good, but your decision making within that positioning from 2 seconds isn't good. And 2 seconds can mean everything. I mean, let's look at 5 seconds. Ready? 5 seconds ago, I was taking the zip up. 5 seconds later, I get lasered down. That's decision making. That is 5 seconds. This is a 5-second interval, back and forth, back and forth. 5 seconds makes the world of a difference. And realistically, I shouldn't have climbed up here knowing that if there was a team that was going to push. Mari actually called beforehand, and I pushed like a big dum-dum. And I'm first to admit when I make a big mistake and what that mistake is, right? We both knew that there was a team that was going to push up, and I full sent it anyways because, you know, sometimes I like to just push things and just see what happens, you know. I get a little too ambitious and a little too curious. Right now I have the jump on these two teams. And see, this is quick decision making right here. Ready? Let's play this in slow motion. Right here, he's running. He doesn't have a gun out, so I decide to start lasering, and I know I have the advantage. And because there's an opponent shooting him over on the right, I win that. I know I do. And I keep moving up. I got a full mag right now. The other person runs up. I instantly know I have the advantage. They're sliding, but they haven't taken a shot. I win this. I win all day, every day. There's no way that they beat me on that. Boom. I get the armor swap. I keep pushing forward. I play aggressively. I go for the... There's two decisions I could have made here. I could have shot the Wattson that slid out, but because she's not... I don't feel like she's an immediate threat. I decide to shoot the Newcastle instead, because I feel like he might actually turn and shoot at me instead. I think this actually results in my elimination, but I decide to move in here because it's going to give me positioning, right? I want to take his spot, which I do. And now I have the jump on the Wattson, and boom. So there's two different things I could have done. I could have shot the Wattson first there, and maybe the Newcastle never would have turned, and then I would have fought the Newcastle here. So there's not necessarily a right or wrong. You just have to kind of make a decision and full force it and make sure you have cover right afterwards. So I think we're getting towards the tail end of the round here, because I think I only get one more elimination. And I just start full sending because I want to get as many eliminations as possible at this point, because I want to get a solid 30. And I start shredding. There's too many people here, unfortunately, and I had to back up and reposition. And realistically, there's no way I win this, but that's pretty much the end of the round. So that was 27 eliminations in a short span of time. That was 6,300 damage. This was, believe it or not, my first game on without no warm-up session. And the beauty behind this is that you'll find that you don't necessarily have to have the best aim in the world, right? It's all about positioning. A lot of that stuff was just positioning and anchoring and getting the jump on opponent, where I can make more mistakes than they did, and it's why playing aggressively and moving up on an opponent and closing the gap as I did on those objectives and playing near them really made a difference. Yeah, I only captured one zone. Sarah did a lot more in terms of capturing zones, but my goal was to eliminate all of those around the objective as much as possible and then push in. So this is how you play aggressively. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.